The match pinged while I was slicing apples for pie. I wiped my hands on my apron, reached for the phone, and blinked at the screen. New DNA relative found. Kaylee had given me that kit last Christmas with a wink. Maybe you'll find out you're part royal, Nana. We'd laughed. It had sat on the shelf for months before I finally spit into the tube and sent it off, just for fun. But this match wasn't fun. It listed him as immediate family, executor notified, name Thomas Rayner. I read the line 3 times. My hand started to shake so hard the phone slipped onto the counter. Thomas Rayner. That name hadn't crossed my mind in decades, but somewhere, deep in the attic of my memory, it stirred dust. I left the apples half-cut and went straight to the sewing drawer in the guest room, the one with the wobbly handle. I dug past old needles and scraps of muslin until I found the envelope. Yellowed, frayed at the edges, labeled in red ink. Do not open, Rayner. I didn't write that, but I had kept it. For 35 years. My fingers hovered for a moment. Then I slid the envelope open with a rusted seam ripper. Inside, 1 sheet. Folded in thirds, brittle from time. A single address, scribbled at the top. Rayner and Ellison Legal Estates, Wilmington, Delaware. Below that, a line. For Nora Chapman, upon contact only. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, my legs suddenly too weak to hold me. Who was this man? And why would a DNA kit connect me to a law firm? I took a deep breath, picked up the rotary phone from the hallway table, and dialed the number listed beside the address. 1 ring, 2. A voice answered. Low, male, polished. Rayner and Ellison Legal Estates. Who's calling, please? My throat clenched. I opened my mouth to speak, but I never got the words out. I hung up the phone like it had burned me. The man's voice still rang in my ears, polished, practiced, like someone used to saying things that changed lives. I sat there in the hallway, knees pressed together, palms clammy against my apron. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the porch chimes Eleanor had given me back in '87. Eleanor. My sister had disappeared the summer Kaylee was born. No goodbye, no forwarding address. One day she kissed my cheek and said, "Going to the courthouse for some papers," and never came back. All she left behind was a silk scarf with purple violets, her perfume bottle, still half full of Yardley lavender, and a letter, unfinished, addressed to just 1 letter. N. I never reported her missing, not after that last fight, and not after what she whispered the night before. If I ever vanish, Nora, don't go looking. Promise me. But a week later, that envelope came, postmarked from Wilmington, no return address, just the words, "Do not open, Rayner." Now here I was, decades older, still afraid of that name, still keeping promises I didn't understand. I stood and walked to the coat closet, pulled out the floral tin I hadn't opened in years. Eleanor's things. The scarf was folded on top, soft and fragile like dried petals. I pressed it to my face. Faint violet still lingered, ghost-like. Underneath, tucked in the hem where the tag used to be, was something small and cold. I unfolded the fabric. A key, tiny, brass, unlabeled. My fingers trembled as I held it to the light. Then I turned back to the computer and typed the name. Rayner and Ellison Legal Estates. There he was, Thomas Rayner, managing partner, gray-haired, sharp suit, eyes that didn't smile. Below his photo, specialist in high-conflict estate concealments. And beneath that, protecting legacies, guarding secrets. I clutched the scarf tight. Tomorrow at 9, I'd be on the first bus to Delaware. I hadn't ridden a bus in 20 years. The fabric seats were scratchy, the heat stifling, and the woman beside me snored like a power saw. But I clutched Eleanor's scarf in my lap and told myself, just a few hours. Just until Wilmington. Through the smudged window, trees blurred into towns, towns into silence. Somewhere outside Philadelphia, I caught my reflection. Lines deeper than I remembered, lips pressed too tight. We'd taken this route once before. I was 17. Eleanor was 20 and fearless. She had tucked a dime into my coat pocket and whispered, "You don't need permission to leave. You just need bus fare." Now I was coming back to her ghost. By noon, I was downtown, standing outside a sleek gray building. Rayner and Ellison Legal Estates. The sign was etched in brushed steel. No warm wood, no welcome, just glass and chrome. I stepped inside. The woman at the front desk looked up with that polite, expressionless face they all seem trained to wear. "Can I help you?" I cleared my throat. "Nora Chapman. I think someone's expecting me." Her fingers paused over the keyboard. Then she looked up, really looked this time. Her smile faded. "One moment." She picked up a phone and whispered something I couldn't catch. Then she nodded. "You may sit. He'll be with you shortly." The minutes dragged. Then the door to the side office clicked open. He walked in like someone who'd already sized up the room from behind the mirror. Salt and pepper hair, neatly parted, sharp jawline, eyes the color of slate. "Nora Chapman?" I nodded. My voice didn't come. "I'm Thomas Rayner." My breath caught in my chest. Before I could speak, he added, calm and deliberate, "You're 34 years late, but we've been expecting you." He reached behind the counter and retrieved a box, small, wooden, carved with delicate vines I somehow recognized. He placed it on the table between us and slid it, slowly, toward me. The box clicked open with a dry little sigh like it had been holding its breath. Inside, layers. The kind Eleanor always loved. She wrapped birthday gifts like nesting dolls. First, a stack of papers. Legal, yellowed at the edges. Then, a photo. I froze. It was Eleanor, but older. Lined, hair shorter, eyes deeper. And beside her, a girl maybe 12 or 13, brown curls, a birthmark near her left eyebrow, eyes that looked just like mine. On the back, Eleanor's handwriting. "Her name is June." I sat down. Thomas watched me with a kind of studied patience, like a man who's done this before. "She's mine?" I asked, voice cracked. "No," he said gently. "She's Eleanor's daughter. But you share primary markers. She's your niece." I looked up sharply. "She's also your legal dependent." "According to this." He gestured to the papers. "Eleanor signed over guardianship to you upon confirmation of DNA match. That was 36 hours ago. We were alerted automatically." I pressed a palm to my chest. He continued. "She came to us in 1990, pregnant, afraid. She refused to name the father outright, but hinted at a connection to a high-wealth estate family with a history of silencing women." My mouth went dry. "She left June in care for a time, then vanished. She died in 2010, auto accident. The estate's been sealed since. But now, your match activates the secondary clause." "What clause?" He opened the folder and pointed. "Custodial claim and estate access. You have 30 days to respond. If not, inheritance defaults to the opposing executor." I stared at the line. Then I whispered, "Who's the opposing executor?" Thomas closed the folder slowly. "Your ex-husband, Daniel Whitaker." I hadn't heard Daniel's name spoken aloud in almost 40 years. Not since the courthouse, when he leaned in with a cold smile and said, "You'll regret meddling with things you don't understand." I thought he meant my sister. Now I knew he did. I turned to Thomas. "How the hell is he involved in this?" He didn't flinch. "Your ex-husband married briefly into the Bennett estate. Old money, East Coast, highly protected. When Eleanor refused to name the father of her child, the family inserted Daniel as contingent executor. My mind reeled. So, what? If I walk away, Daniel gets it all?" Thomas nodded once. "Control of the remaining trust, and custody until June turns 18. She's 17 now. 3 weeks from her birthday." I stood so fast the chair scraped loud against the floor. "Where is she?" "Placed in a closed program near Asheville. Safe but isolated. She knows almost nothing. Just that someone might find her, and that she'd know them by a violet scarf." My hands flew to the scarf at my neck. Thomas glanced at the clock on the wall. "The 30-day clock started yesterday at noon, which means—" "I leave tonight," I interrupted. He didn't argue. I reached down to pack the scarf, then paused. there was something else, wedged beneath the papers. Heavy, crisp. An envelope, dark ivory, edges smooth as glass, sealed in deep red wax, stamped with 2 Gothic letters. D.W. Daniel Whitaker. My fingers hovered over it. Not ready. Not yet. But I would open it. Just not alone. The train rocked me like a lullaby I couldn't fall asleep to. I sat in the corner of my compartment, knees drawn up, Eleanor's scarf wrapped around my hands like a lifeline. Outside, the dark swallowed everything but the occasional gas station sign or flicker of a farmhouse light. We'd passed D.C. an hour ago. Richmond next, then down through Carolina. I hadn't opened the envelope yet. Not because I was afraid of Daniel's words. I was afraid they'd sound like him. Smooth. Just enough truth to disarm. But the weight of it in my coat pocket felt like a dare. At 11:14 p.m., just outside Richmond, I finally broke the seal. The wax cracked clean down the center. Inside, 1 sheet of thick paper. Handwritten. Nora. If you're reading this, it means they triggered the clause. You've been dragged in. Again. I was never supposed to be part of this. They used me. I thought Eleanor was bluffing, until I saw the test results. Until I saw what June could do. She's not normal. Gifted, some say. Cursed, depending on who's asking. Eleanor tried to keep her hidden. But families like the Bennetts don't let go of their own. Even bastards. You think this is about inheritance. It's not. If she opens the box on her birthday, they'll come. All of them. Don't let her open it. Burn it if you have to. D.W. My throat went dry. What box? The estate papers? Something I hadn't found yet? A noise outside made me jump. Just the train braking for a curve. But I couldn't shake it now. They'll come for her. I pulled out the photo again. June, smiling with Eleanor in that crumbling garden. A girl who looked like me. A girl with a countdown ticking. My phone buzzed, screen lighting up. Blocked number. 1 text. She knows someone's coming. Hurry. I stepped off the bus with stiff legs and a stomach full of questions. Asheville greeted me with mist and mountains. Blue Ridge stretching like a quiet warning in the distance. The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon and wet pine. I sat near the window, scarf coiled in my lap, the envelope burned into memory. By 7:40 my rideshare arrived. The driver was older, tall, with a navy cap and hands like sandpaper. "Name's Saul," he said, tipping his head. I nodded. "Nora, I'm going to the Lenox Hills group home." His eyes flicked up in the rear view. "That's way out." "I know." He turned onto the winding road without another word. Half an hour passed in silence before I said it. "I'm here for June Whitaker." His knuckles whitened on the wheel. "You family?" "Yes, aunt." It was the simplest truth I had. He didn't respond right away. Then, as we curved around a patch of dense woods, he pointed to a slope covered in wild violets. "She always stares at those," he muttered, "like they talk back." My hand clenched around the scarf. The home was stone and timber, tucked behind a rusted gate. Quiet. Too quiet. Saul stopped at the path. "You sure you want to go alone?" "Yes." I stepped out. The air smelled like moss and something metallic, like rain coming. As I approached the porch, the door opened on its own. She was already standing there. Long dark hair, same eyes, narrow shoulders, a steadiness that didn't belong on a 17-year-old. "Yeah, I thought you'd come sooner," she said. I stared, couldn't find the words. Then, a crack, loud, violent. I turned just in time to see a transformer explode down the road, sparks flying like fireflies in a storm. The porch lights flickered. June didn't flinch. She stepped back, still holding the door open. "You have to see what's in the woods," she said, and disappeared inside. The house was too still. No voices, no radio, no rustle of kitchen pans or laundry carts. June walked ahead without looking back, barefoot, in a faded sweatshirt, the kind with thumb holes at the cuffs. She moved like someone used to being watched. We passed closed doors, each marked with initials. Faded construction paper crafts hung on one wall, forgotten. The place reeked of pine cleaner and something scorched. Burned wires, maybe, from the blown transformer. At the end of the hall, she pushed open a heavy door. Cold morning air rushed in. Beyond it, woods. Tall, narrow trees that looked like they'd grown to keep secrets. "They think I sleepwalk," she said. "I don't." She led me down a narrow dirt path, ducking branches without effort. "How often do you come out here?" I asked. "Every day." She glanced back. "To remember." The trail opened into a small clearing carpeted with moss. At the center, a patch of turned earth, barely visible. June knelt and pulled up a rusted tin box. Inside, a worn leather journal, a broken gold locket, and photographs. I picked one up. Eleanor, very pregnant, face tired but smiling. Another, Eleanor again, but flanked by 2 men. One was Daniel. The other, a stranger in military dress blues, clean-shaven. Hands on Eleanor's shoulders. "That's him," June said quietly. "The one who watches me from the hill sometimes. The one you don't remember yet." Something turned inside me. Not memory, but warning. She handed me the journal. The cover cracked as I opened it. "For June, when the time comes. And for Nora, if she finds her way." Before I could read more, the trees above us exploded with birds, black wings in a panic. June grabbed my hand. "They're here!" from the brush beyond the clearing. Crunch. Crunch. Footsteps. I pushed June behind me, heart thudding like a war drum. Another crunch. Then a voice. "June, it's Saul." The driver stepped through the brush, palms up. His coat was damp. His eyes scanned the treetops before landing on me. "I saw sparks back near the gate. Power lines down. Just thought maybe you two weren't safe." June didn't move. She just stared at him. Too long. Too still. I stepped forward. "We're fine, thank you." He nodded slowly, but something in his eyes flicked, like he was memorizing everything. "I'll wait out front then," he said, and turned without another word. We walked back in silence. Inside, the house felt like it had exhaled, heavier somehow. June set the box down on the table, and I opened the journal. Eleanor's handwriting. Slanted. Precise. To June and Nora. "If you're reading this, then blood has spoken. That kit you spit in? It wasn't for entertainment. It was a trigger. To alert the trust. To alert them." The next page described something called Project Bellwether. A genetic anomaly traced through maternal lines. High emotional sensitivity. Neural synchrony. Early predictors of illness, violence, death. I turned to June. "Is this what you have?" She nodded. "I see patterns in people, colors, shapes around them. If someone's lying, it feels like broken glass, and I get dreams, right before someone dies." My hands trembled on the page. A folded section halfway through warned, "If Daniel claims the girl, he doesn't get money, he gets access. The estate's vault isn't just funds, it's data, case files, children like her, tracked since birth. It's control, and he doesn't care what it costs." A knock at the door. I jumped. June stayed still. I opened it. Saul stood with something in his hand. "Mailman dropped this earlier. Thought I'd hand it over now." He handed me a heavy envelope. No return address. One line across the front in faded ink. "The key fits box 3. Burn the rest." We waited until Saul drove off, his taillights vanishing into the woods like the end of a fuse. Then June turned to me. "There's another box." I followed her back into the clearing. She dropped to her knees, dug faster this time. A shallow patch beneath the first tin. She pulled out a metal case, smaller. Rusted corners, etched into the lid. Just 3. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out Eleanor's brass key. It fit perfectly. Inside, a strip of microfilm, an old ID badge, Eleanor's face, younger, under the name Helen Bright. And a cassette tape, labeled in fading marker. For Nora, play alone. June's eyes found mine. She didn't ask. I'll wait by the violets, she said softly, and left. Back in the house, I rummaged through the staff lounge. On a high shelf, behind faded board games, I found it, a dusty cassette player. I slid the tape in, hit play. The hiss came first, then Eleanor's voice. Nora, if you're hearing this, it means I failed, or ran out of time, maybe both. I worked inside the Bennett estate, as a nanny, then a clerk. They're not a family, they're a machine, designed to find, mold, and control people like June. Girls with pattern sense, empathy prediction, emotional resonance. Daniel was already inside. He wanted out, but they had leverage. June's father, he was part of the military branch assigned to Project Bellwether. I don't say his name because names trigger searches. Just know he wasn't cruel, just afraid. Her voice faltered, then steadied. Don't let the estate get her. Not even Daniel, especially not him. He thinks he's protecting her. He's not. If she opens the Bellwether capsule on her 18th birthday, they'll activate the sequence. Burn everything but what's in box 3. That's the map. The tape clicked off. I sat frozen, the silence ringing in my ears. Then, the house phone rang. The old landline mounted by the hallway. I picked it up. A voice. Male. Smooth. Tell her to come home. Or we'll bring her. Click. I found her in the grass, her fingers tracing the petals of a violet like she was reading it. They called, I said, breathless. The house phone. They said, tell her to come home, or we'll bring her. June didn't look surprised, just tired. They can't make me come, she said softly. Not unless I sign. Sign what? The transfer, she said. It has to be voluntary. On my 18th birthday. My heart skipped. That's the lever, June nodded. But they won't just threaten. Sometimes they impersonate. Memories, feelings, people. They use what you love. I felt the breath leave my lungs. That night, we locked ourselves in the attic suite above the group home. Old storage turned staff lodging. Thick beams, one small window. A bolt lock I slid shut. June poked through a storage trunk and pulled out old files, staff charts, shift logs, and one laminated folder labeled Whitaker J. Inside, vital stats, REM sleep studies, skin conductivity reports. A final line, underlined in red. Recall episodes align with lunar cycles. I looked at her. She shrugged. That's when I dream. Outside, the woods were still. Too still. I went to the window. The porch below was empty, but I felt it. That static air right before lightning strikes. Then, 3 soft knocks. Too hard. I froze. It wasn't just the rhythm. It was exact. The knock Daniel used on our bedroom door, a code from a life I hadn't touched in 40 years. June looked at me, her pupils dilated. They're already inside, I whispered, and covered her mouth with my hand. We didn't breathe. The knock never came again. But downstairs, a stair creaked. Then another. Not quick, not clumsy. Measured. Slow. June sat cross-legged, her eyes shut, lips barely moving. He's not real, she whispered. He's memory. Constructed. What does that mean? They're using patterns, neural mimicry, like dreams. But louder. I clenched the old ID badge from box 3. Helen Bright. Eleanor's name when she infiltrated the estate. I slid it into June's hand. Her fingers steadied. The footsteps stopped, right outside the attic door. Silence. Then a voice. Nora, it's me. You forgot your wedding ring. My breath caught. That voice. I hadn't heard it in decades, but every syllable was perfect. Not just his sound, his cue tone. That awful, syrupy control. I stepped forward, rage building like a kettle whistle. June pressed her fingers to the wood floor. He's testing the threshold. The doorknob turned, slow, tentative, then rattled hard. I moved on instinct, shoved my palms flat against the door. "You're dead to me, Daniel." Everything stopped. The air lightened. The pressure lifted. No footsteps. No breath. Just gone. June opened her eyes. Then came the scraping. Soft, rhythmic, metal against metal. She turned toward the floor vent near the baseboard, crawled to it, pressed her ear close. "They're not using doors anymore," she whispered. She pulled off the vent cover. Inside, dust, wires, and something small. A flash drive, black, label curling at the edge, in faded marker. Eleanor Failsafe. The flash drive clicked into the USB port like a key sliding home. In the group home's office, fluorescents buzzing overhead, dust motes swirling, I waited. A single folder blinked on the screen. Failsafe. I clicked it. Inside, 4 video files, 2 text transcripts, 1 audio diary labeled Failsafe, Bellwether, Eleanor Chapman. I hit play. Her voice crackled through old speakers, older than I remembered, hoarse and worn thin. "This is the last copy. The estate erased the others. If you're hearing this, I failed." They were tracking the sequence. Girls like June, born sensitive, not psychic, worse, predictive empathy, emotional contagion, influence if they're triggered. June stood behind me, unmoving. The screen shifted. Surveillance footage. Grainy. Time-stamped. June, maybe 6, solving a color grid puzzle faster than the adult beside her. Another file. A room. A man wired to machines. June enters. He smiles, then flinches. His vitals spike. Moments later, he collapses. I pulled away from the screen, sick rising in my throat. "What did they turn you into?" I whispered. June didn't blink. "They didn't turn me into anything," she said. "They woke it up." The final video loaded. Daniel, younger, disheveled. Seated before a long table, shadows masked the faces around him. He was shaking. "I'll take guardianship," he said. "I know what she is." He held a contract. Same paper, same crest. I turned toward June. Before I could speak, the office printer jolted awake. It printed 1 page, just one. I pulled it from the tray. Across the top, transfer document, prepared for June Whitaker. I ripped the transfer document in half before the ink dried, fed the pieces into the office shredder, and watched them disappear in grinding silence. The flash drive came with me. So did the scarf, the photo, and the journal. We were gone by midnight. June and I walked half a mile through dark woods before calling a rideshare under a different name. Helen Bright. Eleanor's ghost still getting us out of trouble. 2 towns over, we checked into a faded motel off Route 19, a room with a humming ice unit outside, floral bedspread, and a door that didn't quite latch. June collapsed into bed. She mumbled in sleep. Strings of numbers, names I didn't know. Coordinates, maybe. I sat by the window with the journal on my lap, cross-referencing notes, dates, patterns. One phrase kept echoing. The red door is the final trigger. Around 5 a.m., June sat up. "I saw it again," she whispered. "The red door, and a boy in a green jacket. He said, 'The capsule is awake.'" My skin prickled. I turned to Eleanor's journal, flipped back 3 pages. 1 margin note, barely legible. "Bellwether capsule triggers at red site. Final option only. Must activate before birthday or default applies. Below it, a sequence of numbers. I recognized the format. Latitude, longitude. I typed it into my phone. Eastern Tennessee. My breath caught. A cabin. I knew it. Eleanor took me there once after our parents died. Pine needles, orange curtains, the smell of rain on wood. She'd called it our nowhere. June looked at me, her face unreadable. "We have 8 days," she said. "How do you know that?" She stared through me. "Because I die if we're late." We drove with the windows cracked just enough to feel the air shift. No GPS, no phones, no digital breadcrumbs. The rental car was a beige sedan with church sticker residue on the rear window. Anonymous. Perfect. We cut across county lines on back roads thick with trees, the kind of roads where signals vanish and deer wander like ghosts. June drifted in and out of herself, sometimes lucid, sometimes locked in. She'd snap to attention and say things like, "The boy with the green jacket isn't a boy," or, "3 birds means someone lied." Then go quiet again. We stopped for gas in a tiny town whose name I didn't catch. The man at the register squinted at June. "She's the girl from the video," he muttered. "What video?" I asked. He blinked. "Didn't say that." He rang me up and wouldn't meet my eye again. We reached the cabin just after dusk, tucked behind old pines, roof sagging a little, porch still painted orange. But something was different. A red door. It hadn't been there before. Down the back hallway, framed like it had always belonged, its edges glowing faintly under the silver wash of moonlight. On the table, a note. Eleanor's handwriting. "If you found the red door, it's awake. Open it only when she's ready, not before, not after." My hand shook holding it. Behind me, June gasped and doubled over. Her voice came out in fragments. Numbers, reversed dates, military codes I half recognized from Eleanor's files. Blood trickled from her nose. I caught her as her knees gave out. And then I heard it. From the forest, faint, rhythmic, like something electric winding up. A pulse, not loud, just steady, calling something home. We dragged the dresser in front of the red door. It didn't rattle, didn't pulse, just stood there like it was listening. All night the hum grew louder, like a hive just out of sight. June tossed in bed, burning up. Around 2 a.m. she sat bolt upright and spoke in Eleanor's voice. "The capsule must be chosen. If it chooses itself, it won't stop." Then collapsed again. At dawn, the hum stopped. The silence felt sharp, like it had corners. June opened her eyes, clear, steady. "Today's not the day," she whispered, "but soon." I spent the morning searching the cabin, every drawer, every floorboard. In the pantry, beneath old jars of beans, I found it. A trapdoor, flush with the wood. Below, a storm cellar, cold, dry, rows of labeled bins, bottled water, a dusty trunk. Inside the trunk, an envelope, sealed in wax. For Nora and June, together. We sat on the cellar floor. She opened it. Eleanor's final letter. "I was Bellwether 1. I volunteered. They thought it skipped generations. It doesn't. It waits. I passed it to June the moment she was conceived. They believed it was a curse. They were wrong. It's a pattern. A choice. If she refuses the gift, the estate resets. Power returns to the vault. But if she accepts, she must bind it. Otherwise, it binds her." June folded the letter, her face unreadable. I couldn't tell if she was terrified or resolved. That night, as we lit a fire and tried to pretend the world wasn't closing in, the hum returned, not just sound now, vibration, beneath the floorboards. Then, headlights. 2, sweeping through the trees, coming straight for the cabin. As the headlights grew, I snuffed the lamps and grabbed June's arm. "Downstairs, now." We slipped into the storm cellar just as 2 doors slammed shut above. From a crack in the hatch, I watched. 2 figures, one tall, rigid posture, the other smaller but deliberate. No flashlights, no hesitation. They didn't knock. They walked the perimeter like they already owned it. When they reached the red door, they paused. The taller one touched the frame, then left something on the porch, a box. They got in the car and drove off without a word. Hours passed before I dared open the door. The black box was thin, matte finish, heavy. Inside, a contract, printed, already filled with June's full name, and a silver ring, small, delicate, etched with the bellwether crest. June took one look at it and said, "It's not a gift, it's a leash." We burned the contract in the fireplace, watched the flames chew through her name like it mattered. But that night, I woke to cold air, back door wide open, scarf folded neatly on the table, and a line across the wall, drawn in charcoal from the hearth. "I'll bind it myself." I turned to the red door, faint glow pulsing beneath it, and in the center, June's handprint. I screamed her name into the trees until my voice broke. No trail, no sound, no June. I stumbled back to the cabin, hoping she'd just circled wide, but the red door was ajar. Inside the threshold, her journal. I picked it up with shaking hands, pages filled with spirals, doorways, and again, the boy in the green jacket, watching, never moving. The last page said, "If I open it, I choose what binds me. If they open it, they choose." I whispered a prayer I hadn't said in 40 years and stepped through the red door. It wasn't a room. It was a memory. Mine. I was 12. Eleanor sat at the kitchen table, holding a telegram, crying. I remembered this, but not June being there. And yet, she was. She walked up to Memory Eleanor and touched her cheek. "I'm ready," she whispered. The air cracked like a windshield under pressure. The scene split, glass-webbed and gone. Now I was in a round room, no doors, no windows, just a floor painted in Eleanor's handwriting, circles of it. In the center, the silver ring. I reached for it, and behind me, a voice, clear, calm, familiar. "She made the choice. Now you must witness it." I turned. Eleanor stood there, not as I remembered, alive. She looked just like she used to, but she wasn't. Eleanor stood motionless in the center of the circular room, her hair loose, her dress humming like it remembered motion. "You're not real," I said. Her smile held 1,000 years of sorrow. "I'm not alive," she answered, "but I am real." She explained it quietly, like it was something she'd practiced saying. Her consciousness had been embedded inside the capsule, her choice, her failsafe. "If June ever reached the red door," she said, "I'd be here, to explain." "To explain what?" "That she already chose," Eleanor said. "The handprint bound it. She's awakened the pattern, and others like her, across the country, they've felt it stir." My heart pounded. "What happens now?" "That's up to her," she said. "But it comes with cost." The air flickered, and June appeared. But not the same. She glowed faintly, skin lit from within. Her eyes weren't looking at me. They were looking through me, at everything. "I saw everything," she said. "You gave up everything for me." I reached for her, but my hand passed through. Not mist, not illusion. Something else. A new kind of boundary. "You have to leave now," she whispered, "or you'll get caught in the bind." "I'm not leaving you again." Then Eleanor raised her hand. Wind exploded around me, like being yanked backward through a tunnel made of light. As the world blurred, I heard her voice one last time. "Witness, protect, remember." I hit the floor hard. Wood, cold, familiar. The red door stood sealed behind me. No glow, no sound, just stillness. I pounded on the red door until my hands ached, but it was sealed. No hum, no light, just silence. She was gone, not taken, not lost, but gone somewhere I couldn't follow. The cabin felt different now. The air was too still, the birds too quiet. Even the shadows looked confused. At dawn, Saul arrived. Same cap, same sandpaper hands. He didn't ask anything, just handed me an envelope. Inside, a photograph. June. Older, maybe by days, but different. Standing in front of a government building, shoulders back, eyes steady. On the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize. She's not missing. She's becoming. I looked up. Saul nodded. The estate can't touch her now. She's outside the grid, but that doesn't mean she's free. What happens to her? He shrugged. She'll surface when the pattern needs her. Might be next week. Might be never. Then he held out a single key, tiny, brass. Eleanor set up a box in D.C. years ago, said you'd know when it was time. Are you with the estate? He smiled, slow and sideways. I'm with the pattern. Then he turned, climbed into his truck, and drove away without another word. I sat on the porch. A single violet bloomed near the steps, bright against the brittle October grass. I knelt beside it, remembered June's fingers brushing the petals like braille, and then, in the soft wind curling through the trees, a whisper, faint, but mine. I'm still with you. I stayed in the cabin for 3 days after she vanished. Couldn't sleep, couldn't leave. It felt wrong to step away, like I might miss her if she slipped back through. I reread Eleanor's journal again, this time under sunlight near the window. New lines shimmered faintly, invisible ink, now exposed. If she binds it, she'll send a sign. You'll feel it before you see it. That afternoon, the radio crackled, dead for weeks. Then, a voice, no intro, no static. Just one line, 38.9, 77.03. Then silence. Coordinates. I typed them in. Washington, D.C., a neighborhood I hadn't been to in decades. I drove all night. At the old post office off H Street, the clerk didn't even glance up as I approached the wall of boxes. Box 318. The key slid in like it had always known where it belonged. Inside, a manila folder. Contents, a photograph. June, smiling, seated beside a chalkboard filled with spirals, equations, drawings of doors. She looked older, grounded, awake, and a letter, addressed in script that made my chest cave in. Aunt Nora. I opened it. I'm not lost. I'm aligned. The binding didn't erase me. It clarified me. You kept your promise. Now I keep mine. My hands shook too hard to finish. But I already knew. She wasn't gone. She was becoming. The journal ended mid-sentence. I must have read that last page 100 times, hoping the ink would shift, that something would surface. Then one morning, it did. A new page. Same paper, same pen, but the ink shimmered like moonlight. The last activation requires a witness. Only one. I packed that afternoon, drove back to the cabin. The violet still bloomed on the porch. I placed my palm against the red door, right where June had. It opened. Inside, silence. One chair, one screen. I sat. The screen blinked on. Live feeds. Dozens of them. Girls, young women, in cities, towns, rural schools. Some teaching, some crying, some walking away from families that couldn't understand. Each of them carried something in their eyes, an echo of June. Then a line appeared on the screen. Assign witness role to Nora Whitaker? My breath caught. I pressed yes. There was a sting, sharp and fast, right behind my eyes, then clarity. Not visions, but outlines, movements, patterns I hadn't noticed before, soft trails of truth people left behind. The screen faded. The chair dissolved. I was back in the cabin, same floorboards, same light, but I wasn't the same. Then, a knock, gentle, hesitant. At the door stood a girl, maybe 10, freckles, wind-tangled hair, eyes wide with something she didn't understand yet. In her hand, a folded paper, my name on it, Nora Whitaker. I opened the door wider. She stepped inside, and I knew what to do. She said her name was Lily. She looked half lost, half furious, 10 years old, freckles like ashes. Clutching a sheet of paper with my name scrawled across the front. "I was told to find you," she said, "if the noises came back." I knelt beside her. What kind of noises? In water? In trees? The dog hears them too. Her mother thought she was sick. Her school said sensory processing. But I saw the signs. The weight behind her gaze, the stillness in her hands. She was one of them. We fell into a rhythm, journaling, breathing, learning to sort what was real from what was signal. She started drawing spirals, mapping wind patterns, tracking birds. One morning, she stopped mid-step on the porch, pointed at a patch of earth glowing under early light. We dug. Another tin box, same type, same weight. Inside, a locket, etched with the bellwether crest, and a note. For the second witness. I sat down hard on the steps. This wasn't spontaneous. It was patterned. Eleanor knew. June knew. That night, Lily drew in her journal by lantern light. Her spiral was identical to June's chalkboard sketch. I felt it move through me. Not fear, readiness. The trees rustled with more than wind. And when the hum returned, not loud, not urgent, just steady. I closed my eyes and hummed back. Lily could tell when the phone would ring before it did, or when the storm would hit, down to the minute. Her senses weren't loud, just right. I taught her how to pause before acting. "How you feel, it doesn't mean you fix it," I said. She wrote that in her journal with 3 underlines. Then the package came, no return address. Just one line in careful print. To the witness house. I didn't realize we'd become one. Inside, a small black stone, warm to the touch, and a note, coded. Lily cracked it within the hour. June's signature style. The stone tunes. When it turns white, the third awakens. You'll need 3. That night, Lily held it in her palm. It warmed again, shifted color, now gray. "The pattern's spreading," I whispered. I prepped the house, cleaned the spare room, laid out Eleanor's journals, set a third place at the table. That night, I dreamed. June stood at the red door, backlit, her hair whipped by wind I couldn't feel. "The third comes from silence," she said. When I woke, the stone glowed soft ivory, and outside, tires on gravel. A car pulled in. No panic, no rush. Lily stood beside me, barefoot. Steady. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. It was beginning again. She didn't speak for the first 2 days, not one word. But her eyes tracked everything. Lily, the kettle, the trees. Her name was Maya. 12. Thin wrists, heavy silence. She didn't flinch when the wind knocked the shutters, didn't cry when Lily showed her the signal maps. She just watched. Lily took her hand like she'd known her forever. They sat on the porch while I made tea. No one asked anything. That's how this works. By the 4th day, Maya started sketching. Not words, shapes, patterns I'd seen before, spirals, loops, mirror lines. And then, one night after supper, she hummed. One note, long, low. The same tone June used in the cabin years ago. The stone pulsed the moment it left her lips. Lily jumped. "It's pointing," she said. "It wants us to follow." We did. Through the trees, past the well, behind the cabin, where the ground felt thinner. They dug with their hands. Another tin box. Inside, a photograph. 3 girls, June, Lily, Maya, same faces, same ages, but the photo was old, faded, curled at the edges like it had been waiting, stamped on the back. Verified line, 3 of 5. I staggered. 5. There were 5. The red door wasn't the ending, it was the signal, and the pattern had only just begun. The girls began to move as one, not in sync, in resonance. Maya's silence wasn't emptiness, it was grounding. Lily's perception sharpened the space between events. And June, though gone, was in every spiral they traced. I didn't teach them. I witnessed them. Then I noticed it. The spine of Eleanor's journal, slightly thicker than it should be. I peeled back the lining, a sealed envelope. When the third arrives, begin the call. Inside, 1 sentence. The fourth is hidden in plain sight. Lily read it aloud. Maya tilted her head and drew a number, 3 and 18, the mailbox. I left before dawn, drove to D.C. Box 318 opened easily. Another envelope, thicker. Inside, a list, names, girls born within a 3-week window. At the bottom, 1 line. She knows. She waits. 1 name was underlined. Kentucky, rural, familiar. As I drove back, the old backup phone buzzed for the first time in years. A message blinked across the screen. The fourth is en route. ETA, 48 HERs confirm witness readiness. I turned it off. Didn't need confirmation. I looked at the girls. They were steady. They were listening. They were ready. And finally, so was I. She came at dusk, thunder grumbling behind her like a closing door. Her name was Arden, 17, composed, wearing old boots and a coat 2 sizes too big. She said only one thing as she crossed the threshold. I felt it, all the way from Hazard. The moment she stepped inside, the stone turned white. No heat, no hum, just certainty. The signal was complete. That night, the girls sat in a circle, hands grazing, no candles, no chants, just breath and space and presence. I watched from the doorway, didn't speak. Then, the wind stopped. The air held its breath, and June's voice, not memory, not dream, echoed from the stone. 5 will rise, but only 4 will guide. The 5th is not who you expect. No one moved. But I saw it, the flicker of understanding in Lily's eyes, the still nod from Maya, the corner of Arden's mouth twitch, just barely. At midnight I stepped outside. The forest held its own kind of silence now. Then I saw it, above the tree line, a soft column of light, spiraling, breathing, not a warning, a call, and in the distance, 5 separate points pulsed in response, across the hills, across the map. The pattern had waited long enough. It was moving now.